Very good morning, students. Welcome back to online classes. Today's session is Revision Class 2, based on a chapter called as Classes and Objects. Before getting into the Revision Class 2, we'll just check it out what are the topics we have covered in the previous Revision Class 1. We have seen a definition and declaration of classes and objects, and also we have seen the access specifiers. In an access specifier, we used to have private, public, and protect. These are the topics which was being covered into a revision class 1. Now let us start a revision class 2 and we'll see that what are the topics we are going to cover on revision class 2. The same warning note for the students for all the revision classes. Note, this information is for the students not to skip the videos for the betterment of the students to understand the revision concepts. First, the previous theory classes of a particular topic was being covered. Those videos will be played and followed by that revision concept on the same topic will be carried out. Now we'll see that what are the topics we are going to cover into today's session. Topics to be covered in revision class 2. The first topic is member functions, inside the class definition and outside the class definitions. These are the three topics where we are going to cover in today's session.
Very good morning, students. Welcome to class 2 in a chapter classes and objects. Before getting into class 2, we'll see that what are the topics have been covered into class 1. We had covered an introduction to a classes, class definition and declaration of classes. And we also saw a general syntax of class declaration with an example. We also discussed about a different access specifiers like private, protect and public. And also we had one example which was covered all the topics which we had discussed about that. Now let us get into class 2. Yes, today let us start our today's session with the first topic, member functions. What is that member function? Member function are the functions that are included in a class. Class functions of a class can be defined either inside the class definition or outside the class definition. In both the cases, the function body remains the same. However, the function header differs. I repeat it again. In both the cases, the function body remains same and the function header is different. Member function can define in two places, inside the class definition and outside the class definition. Firstly, we'll see that how to define member function inside a class. To define member function inside a class, the function declaration within the class is replaced by actual function definition. I will repeat it again. The function declaration within a class is replaced by a actual function definition inside the class. A function definition in a class is treated as an inline function. Only a small functions are defined inside the class definition. Inside the class, the complicated programs are not being written in 95% of cases. In a general syntax, define a member function inside the class in the sense by having a return type followed by a class name with a member functions. I'll repeat it again. A general syntax is being written by return type, class name, within a function, the member functions are being declared. After seeing the general syntax of defining a member function inside the class, we'll see a small example how to declare the inside member function inside the class. This is a small example where you're going to calculate the area of a triangle. First of all, before writing a class, we are going to have a classification. What are the data members we are going to have and member functions we are going to have. When I want to calculate the area of a rectangle, I needed a formula of length into breadth. What is that? Length into breadth. So I'm going to add two variables called as in length as well as your breadth. Once I want to calculate this two, length and breadth, I needed to store the result in one more variable called as an area. These are the three data members we are going to have into this example. And in this program, we are going to have three member function. What are those member function in the sense? Firstly, I'm going to take all the data from the user. That I'm going to use it as member function as get data. In a get data, what are the data members I'm going to get? Enter the value for a length and the breadth. The cn, I'm going to accept a length as well as your. After getting all the data from the user, and we have collected and kept into one of the function called as in get data. After getting it, we are going to write a separate member function for the calculation part. How we are going to write a separate calculation part in the sense, we are going to take a return type which is having a void, followed by member function name as compute. In this part, we are going to calculate the area of a rectangle. In this here, how we are going to calculate in the sense, we are going to calculate area is equals to length into breadth. After calculating of this length into breadth, we are going to store the result into the area. Now the total calculation part is got over in one of your member function called as a compute. After computing it, we are going to write one more member function called as display. Display is a member function where you are going to display the result of area of a rectangle. Once all three member function is being created, what are those member function? That is nothing but get data, compute and display. These are the three member function which we have been created in this example. After creating all this member function into the inside the class, we are going to close a class with a close braces with followed by a semicolon. After seeing inside class definition, now let us see outside class definition. To define member function outside the class declaration, you must link the class name of a class with the name of a member function. Once again, I repeat you, to define member function outside the class declaration, you must link the class name of a class within the name of member function. Defining a member function outside a class requires a function declaration or a function prototype should be provided inside the class definition. It is declared inside the class as a normal function. It is declared inside the class as a normal function. This declaration informs the compiler that the function is a member of a class and that it is being defined outside the. After a member function is declared inside the class, it must be defined outside the class. We can do this by preceding the function name with the class name followed by a two colons. The two colons are called as scope resolution operator, and it is used to define the member functions outside the class. Now we will see the general syntax of the how to declare outside the class definition. A general syntax of declaring outside the class is using the keyword called as a return type. Return type followed by a class name, and it should be given a double colon, that is scope resolution operator. This operator is used to define outside the class declaration, and scope resolution operator followed by the member function name, and the function which is going to have different types of arguments, the arguments which is being given inside the function. After passing an argument, you can open the function body. How to open the function body? In the sense, by using one of the symbol called as an open brace. With the open brace and followed by the function body. Once a function body is being finished, it should be closed by using a close brace. Once a close brace is indicated, the function member function is being ended. Here we have a small example for declaring an outside the class. I'm going to take a small example for an operation. In this operation, we are going to take a two operation. One is sum and a product. Sum of two numbers and product of two numbers. So I'm going to create a class called as an operation. In this class operation, I have a two data members, that is A and B, which is declared inside the private. The data members are declared inside the private. Once I declare a data members, I'm going to create a member function. Here, just observe the member function here. As I told you, the return type we are going to just declare as a normal function inside the class. Once you declare a normal function inside the class, a return type followed by a member function name with a normal function. In this normal function will not have any semicolon. But here, once you want to write a declaration outside the class, the function will consist of a semicolon. Here I have a two member function, call it as a sum as well as a product. So this is considered as a normal function once it is being declared inside the class. Once we defined all the member functions inside the class in this program, let us see how we are going to declare outside the class. As we have seen in the into a syntax, in a previous slide itself, we have created a member function called as sum as well as your product. Now I'm going to write how to declare outside the class. When I want to write an outside the class, first I should follow the return type. Return type as an int, an operation was being created as a class name. And followed by one of a symbol called as a scope resolution operator, which helps us to create a class declaration outside the class. Now some which we already created a member function as a sum. Once you create a function header function, you're going to start open the body, which is used by a symbol called as an open brace followed by a function body, which is written a plus b. A plus b is a calculation for the sum member function. Once a calculation part got over, you are going to close the function. How we are going to close a function? By using same method, by closing a open brace. And I'm going to write a second calculation part for the second member function called as a product. Same thing we are going to follow as a return type as an int, operation as a class name followed by member function called as a product. Once I want to open up body I used to use one of a symbol called as an open brace, and I'm going to write a calculation part. As soon as the calculation part is got over, I'm going to close the body as by using a flower bracket. This is how you're going to create the member function outside the class. Once after finishing the example, hope so we have you people have understood that how you have declared the outside the class as well as your inside the class. After finishing this topic, we'll come across the other topics into the next class. Thank you.
Very good morning, students. Welcome back to our online class. So I'll just brief out what we have discussed in the last session. So last session, this was a class 1 for us. We started classes and objects. So in the class 1 session, what we have discussed the definition for class. So what is class? Class is a collection of objects with identical properties which has a common behavior and shared relationship. We call that as a class. A class is a blueprint which has the associated data members and the member functions. Okay. So if a class we have a number of different definitions, you can write the according to pre-university textbook, class is called as a collection of objects which has identical properties, common behavior and the shared relationship. Okay, as well as we can also call class as a template or a blueprint which contains the data member and the member functions and the associated member functions. Okay, later we have seen the difference between class definitions and class declaration. Okay. So later we have seen the access specifier. So in access specifier we have three types of access specifier: public, private and protected. We have discussed this in detail with an example. So in today's session we will discuss about the member functions. So member functions, I have written member functions. So what are member functions? Member functions is also called as methods. I told you in the traditional programming language in C++, in procedure oriented programming, we call these functions as, we call it as functions, but in OOPS concept, in object oriented programming, we call that as the methods or member functions. So the functions here we call it as member functions. Usually the member functions can be, yesterday I showed you an example, get data and show data. There we have discussed that get data and show data within the class. So there are two ways of defining the member functions, inside the class and outside the class. So the member functions can be defined in two ways: inside class definition, inside class definition, inside class definition and outside class definition, inside class definition and outside class definition. Inside class definition and outside class definitions, these are the two major function calls. So these are the two ways in which the member functions can be accessed. Now we'll see in detail with a programming example how to define the member function inside the class and the outside the class. See students, this is a continuation like how to define the member function inside the class definition. So inside the class definitions, how you are going to define the member function. So this is nothing but your syntax. So how your syntax will be for member function? First we will have your return type, then class name, then we have the member function. Okay. So what we have, class rectangle. Now we have, so here this is nothing but your data members. These are nothing but your data members. These are called as your data members. So I told you data members usually will be data variables. So this get data and put data, okay, or show data or put data, these two things, these are called as your member function. These are your member functions. Now you can see clearly the member functions are within the class. So the class ends here. See, after the curly brace, in yesterday's session I explained you how when the class will end. Okay, where after the curly brace, if I put a semicolon, that means the class definition ends there. So within the class, inside the class, I have two member functions. So only the heading is inside class definition. So inside the class, I have two member functions. One is get data, next one is put data. Okay, so we have two member functions. One is get data and next one is put data. So I'll tell you now the definition for this get data is within the class. Now definition for put data is also within the class. Why? Because get data and put data, the definitions I have not just declared, I have just even defined what get data will do. Okay, what get data will do, it will read it will read the length, it will read the breadth. What show data will do, it will display the length and it will display the breadth. So the definition for get data and put data I have defined within the class. So what is your class? Rectangle. I repeat, in your class. So what is my class? So last session I told you while defining the class, what is the syntax? Class will have a class name. So what is my class here? Class rectangle. It has two things. One is data member and the member functions. So data member I have length and breadth, and member functions I have get data and put data. Just by declaring or prototyping, we didn't leave the data as it is, means the member function as it is. We have even defined what get data will do, what is the operation of get data, and what are the operations of put data. When we try to define the definition for get data and put data within the class, we call that as the declaring a class, declaring the member function inside the class. Here two things we have to keep in mind. When we want to declare like this, okay, when we want to define the member function inside the class, it should be a small function call. If it's a big function call or a big definition, it is a little bit tedious for the compiler to handle. So when it is a small function call, like for example, I can give you an inline function. So inline function can happen. So here the function body, whenever a function call, it has been replaced by the body of the function. So here we have a function call wherein the definition is also present within the class. A small piece of code like snippet we can give within. In the inline functions, I can give the best example for defining the member function inside the class. But outside the class, we have to use a special operator called as scope resolution operator. So this 1 mark they'll ask, what is the operator which is used to define the member function outside the class? So outside the class, we need an operator called as scope resolution operator. That is your next concept. So inside the class, we don't need a scope resolution operator, but whereas we have to define the class member function outside the class, we need to use this scope resolution operator. Okay, 2 colons if you use, that is called as scope resolution operator. Next concept is we will discuss about defining the member function outside the class. Okay students, next we'll discuss about the member function outside the class definition. So outside the class, how we are going to define the class definition. So here also same, I have given you the syntax. So in syntax you see we have written type class name. So before writing the member function, you are supposed to put the scope resolution operator. So this 2 colons we call this as the scope resolution operator. This is called as scope resolution. Scope resolution operator. So this is called as scope resolution operator. Okay, now this is a syntax return type class name scope resolution. Then you have to give the member function. Then inside the member function, it's so obvious you can pass the arguments, and up to argument n, a number of arguments can be passed within your member function. So how to define the member function? First, why? Because you are defining it outside the class. There will be n number of classes which are running in the program. You have to tell the compiler that particular member function belongs to which class. So how will you tell? What is the syntax? First you have to tell the class name, return type, class name, then scope resolution operator, then member function. For example, 2 or more programs have the same member function. Imagine put data. So display is common for all programs. Imagine you have put data or display, which is a common member function. When 2 or 3 programs have the same member function, so how the compiler will identify? So when you are defining outside the class, you need to mention return type, class name, scope resolution operator, and the member function. So inside we have function body. This is your function body. Okay, this is the syntax. Now I have taken an example, class operation. So what is my class name? Operation. I have my access specifiers private and public. So my class ends here. Okay. Now you see, I have member data as well as member function. Sum and product are called as my member function. Int A and B are called as my member data. Okay, now you see I have not defined what sum will do. Definition for sum and definition of product I have not mentioned within the class. My class ends here. This definition I have given outside the class. See, after the semicolon, after the curly brace I have semicolon. My class literally ends. After this I have given the definition. Now you can compare your syntax with this example. Return type, here it is integer. Class name, it's an operation. I have scope resolution operator, and this is my member function. What is my member function? Sum. Okay, so this is nothing but int. I have my class name, scope resolution operator, sum. Then inside that I am having my function body. Here what I am doing, I am just taking the value and just I am returning it to the main function. Okay. Next we have product. Okay, sum for product also same thing. Sum is this. Next operation is product. So next operation is product. Here I have again saying the return type, class name, as well as, sorry, not class name, return type. Here return type as well as the function name. Okay. No, this is nothing but here also you are supposed to mention the same way. Okay, you have to mention in the same way hint operation. So see here again same when you are defining you should give the return type, then we have to write the function name. What is your function name? Oh sorry, your class name, operation, scope resolution operator. Then I have to define this is my member function. My member function. What is my member function? My member function is product. What is my class name? So this is your class name. Your class name is operation. So this is your return type. Your return type usually will be your data type. So your return type of this is integer, and here we have operation, scope resolution operator, and your member function. Again here it will be your function body. So this will be your function body. So this is how we are going to define. So while looking at the program itself, you can tell whether it is inside the class or outside the class. So here I have the sum as well as the product and sum. The definitions I have given it outside the class. Okay. So these are the two main things. So they'll ask for 5 marks how to define the member function inside the class and outside the class. So inside the class, make sure that it usually works for a small function calls like inline functions. When the function body is too short functions, we have to use inside the class. But if it is a large function, you have a number of functions, you need to define the member function outside the class. You are supposed to use the scope resolution operator. Again, the syntax also changes. So this is a small concept. Even in the assignment question, only one question I put how to define a member function inside the class and outside the class. You just give the explanation and just tell the and just write the program. This carries 5 marks. Okay. So remaining concepts we'll discuss in the next session. Thank you.
Before seeing the assignment questions, we'll just check it out the topics which we have been covered. We have covered member functions, inside the class definition, and also outside the class definitions. These are the topics which we have covered in revision class 2. In today's session, we have covered a 5-mark questions. In that, the one question that is explain the member function. In that, we used to have the sub questions like A, inside the class definition, B, outside the class definition. These two sub questions are very important question in point of examination. So students, please be very careful onto this question. Thank you students. We'll see you in the next class.